The wall where my car keys always hung was bare, but my son downstairs stirred his coffee like nothing had changed. Still, I tied my robe and moved through the silence like it wasn't designed to corner me. As the smell of burnt toast crept in, it carried a sharper truth: they had planned this. While he scrolled his phone, I texted the tow truck my car would leave before he woke up fully. The same boy I once taught to cross streets now believed I couldn't cross one alone. That's when I decided if they wanted quiet compliance, I'd answer with quiet war. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The house felt too still when Gloria woke, quiet in a way that didn't belong to morning. No clatter from Kevin making coffee, no soft footsteps from Maggie getting ready for school, just the slow hum of the ceiling fan and a kind of hollow calm pressing against the walls. She slipped on her slippers, tightened her robe, and walked toward the kitchen. The hook beside the pantry where her car keys had hung every morning for 20 years sat empty, not misplaced, not knocked loose. Empty. Her hand hovered there for a moment, fingers brushing the bare wood, searching for the familiar cool weight that should have been resting in her palm. A strange heaviness settled in her chest, not fear exactly, but recognition, an instinct sharpened over years of quiet observation. She checked the counter, the drawer, her purse, the small ceramic bowl where she sometimes dropped the keys while juggling groceries. Nothing. The silence in the house deepened, stretching thin. Gloria walked through the dining room and pushed open the interior garage door. The smell of detergent and old cardboard greeted her. Her sedan sat in its usual place, paint glinting softly under the single overhead bulb. But when she turned the ignition, the engine didn't even try to spark. No crank, no click, just dead stillness. She lifted the hood. The battery cables were detached. Neat job, intentionally done, someone who wasn't guessing. She closed the hood and wiped her hands on her robe, the cotton absorbing more than just dust. She stood there for a long breath, letting the pieces align, not in anger but in clarity. When she stepped back inside, Kevin stood at the end of the hallway, arms folded across his chest. He didn't even look surprised to see her. "Mom," he said, using the tone adults reserve for children and children reserve for the elderly, "maybe it's time to stop driving. You could have gotten hurt last week." She looked at him carefully. His posture wasn't protective. It was cornered, defensive, like someone bracing for a pushback he had already rehearsed answering. Lauren joined him from the kitchen, her expression polished, composed. "You've had a good run," she added, smoothing her blouse as if preparing for a meeting. "Let's not push it, things change." Gloria didn't move. She inhaled once deeply, letting their words settle just long enough to be weighed. Something in Lauren's voice carried too much certainty. Something in Kevin's gaze refused to meet hers. She walked past them to her office desk, opened the bottom drawer where she kept neatly labeled folders: automobile, insurance, title. The automobile folder was still there. The title folder was not. A hollow space sat where it belonged. She closed the drawer gently. Her pulse didn't spike, her voice didn't tremble. She had lived long enough to know that panic was a luxury you bought with inexperience, and she was not inexperienced. Both Kevin and Lauren watched her from across the room, waiting, measuring, assuming her next step. She turned toward them with a small, almost pleasant smile. "Okay," she said softly, "maybe I need rest." Kevin's shoulders loosened. Lauren exhaled like she had just won something. But neither noticed the small flicker behind Gloria's eyes. They didn't see the shift in her breath, the way her fingers stilled, or the way she tucked the absence of that title into a place in her mind where she never misplaced anything. They didn't recognize the look of a woman who had already begun planning. She walked back to her room slowly, deliberately, closing the door with a quiet finality. In her nightstand drawer sat her phone and the number she hadn't used in years. The tow company. Her hand hovered over the screen. Tomorrow, before dawn, before anyone else woke, before Kevin and Lauren could intercept anything else she owned, she would make a call. And when the engine she trusted rolled back into her hands, they would learn something they had forgotten. Gloria McNeil didn't lose what was hers. She reclaimed it. The desert sky was still lavender when Gloria stepped quietly onto the corner of Mesquite Drive, the cool morning air brushing against her cheeks. The neighborhood hadn't fully woken yet, sprinkler's tea. Icking in the distance, a lone dog barking somewhere behind a stucco fence. Her slippers had been traded for sturdy walking shoes, her robe for a windbreaker zipped to the chin. She carried nothing but her purse and the thin, unwavering line of resolve in her posture. At exactly 6:40 a.m., headlights turned the corner. The tow truck eased toward her, engine rumbling low, the driver leaning out with a nod of recognition. He was younger than she expected, beard speckled with dust from early calls, eyes attentive but without judgment. "Mrs. McNeil," he asked. "That's me," she replied. "Let's keep it quiet." He understood immediately. Some people broadcast their battles, others handled them like surgery, precise, controlled, unseen. Gloria walked him halfway down the block, stopping just short of Kevin's bedroom window. From here, the driveway was visible but not the vantage point where he usually drank his coffee and surveyed the morning. The driver studied the layout once, twice, mapping the angle. "You want it pulled straight out," he whispered. "No," she said softly. "Ease it backward first, tires won't drag as much." He smiled at that, respectfully impressed. "You've done this before." "I pay attention," she said. He backed the tow truck in with surgical quiet, the reverse beep disabled at her earlier request. The winch unfurled in a slow, metallic whisper. Gloria guided him with a steady hand gesture, each motion crisp and certain. Her car, still powerless, still violated, waited exactly where she had left it. The hook latched, the cable tightened. Inside the house, a curtain shifted. "Maggie." Her small face appeared for a brief second between the blinds, eyes wide, expression soft but fierce with understanding. She didn't wave, she didn't mouth anything. She simply watched, the kind of watching that promised loyalty without needing a single word. The sedan lifted slightly as the truck eased it from the driveway. Tires kissed the pavement. Sunlight edged over the horizon just in time to catch the chrome of the bumper. Then a door slammed. "Kevin's." He burst outside wearing mismatched socks and a wrinkled t-shirt, hair flattened on one side from sleep. His eyes flicked from the truck to his mother, disbelief breaking across his face. "What are you doing?" he demanded, voice too loud for the hour. "Mom, where are you taking the car?" Gloria stepped out from the shade of the mesquite tree, posture calm, expression unreadable. The rising sun carved a faint glow along her shoulders. "It's still my name on the registration," she said evenly. Kevin blinked, stunned by the absence of panic. "But Mom, this is crazy. We talked about this. You can't just." The tow driver straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. "She showed ID," he said, not unkindly. "That's all we need." Kevin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Words scrambled behind his tongue, none strong enough to hold against the legality he had hoped no one would invoke. Lauren appeared at the doorway behind him, robe drawn tight, expression sharp with dawning realization. "Gloria, this isn't necessary," she said. "We were trying to help." But Gloria had already stepped toward the truck, her calmness louder than either of them. As the driver secured the last strap, Kevin moved forward as if to block the path but stopped short, uncertainty catching his feet the way guilt sometimes did. The truck's engine deepened, the wheels turned, her car, her independence began rolling forward. Maggie's curtain shifted once more. And Gloria felt the exact moment the balance of power left the driveway. As the tow truck pulled away, leaving Kevin speechless and Lauren pale, Gloria caught her breath in the cool morning air. This wasn't the victory. This was the opening move. And by the time Kevin realized what that meant, she would already be 3 steps ahead. The tow truck's taillights had barely vanished from Mesquite Drive before Gloria was already walking toward the bus stop, purse strapped firm across her shoulder. The desert air was still cool, carrying the faint scent of dust and orange blossoms. She preferred driving, always had, but today the loss of convenience felt purposeful. It reminded her who she was without anyone else's permission. By the time she reached the DMV office on Desert View Road, the sun had climbed high enough to warm the stucco walls a pale gold. Inside, the space buzzed with morning appointments, numbers blinking on screens, the murmur of clerks, the shuffle of paperwork. Rachel Mendez spotted her instantly. "Gloria McNeil," she said, emerging from behind the counter with familiarity only old colleagues could claim. "You look like someone with a mission." Gloria didn't deny it. "I need to secure my title." Rachel's eyebrows lifted the slightest bit, surprise tempered with understanding. She gestured for Gloria to follow her into a side office far from waiting room ears. "What happened?" Rachel asked once the door closed. Gloria recounted the keys, the bat. The missing folder." Rachel didn't interrupt. She listened the way people do when they've seen a pattern too many times to pretend it isn't one. "All right," Rachel said, opening a fresh digital form on her screen. "We'll start with a restrictive transfer alert, locks your vehicle title, no changes unless you show up in person with ID." Gloria nodded once, approving. Rachel typed with quick precision, verifying each field, ensuring nothing could slip through unnoticed. When she printed the form for signature, Gloria's hand didn't tremble, not even a little. Next came the interference statement. "This falls under elder rights protection," Rachel explained, sliding a clipboard toward her. "Tampering with transportation or documents is flagged as coercive control. Doesn't matter that they're family." Gloria filled out the sheet with steady strokes. The reason section she kept factual, concise. She refused to let emotion blur the truth. Rachel reviewed the form, then crossed to the filing cabinet. She retrieved a single printout and laid it on the desk as if revealing the last card in a hand she already knew how to win. "They tried submitting something last week," she said. "A preliminary title inquiry, nothing formal but enough to ping our system. We blocked it." Gloria allowed herself a soft, small smile. Good. It wasn't joy, it wasn't spite. It was simply the satisfaction of accuracy, of knowing her instincts had been sharper than the schemes behind her back. When the paperwork was completed, Rachel walked her to the exit, palm resting lightly on Gloria's shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "Most people wait until damage is done." "I don't wait," Gloria replied, "not anymore." Outside, the afternoon heat had begun to thicken, humming off the pavement in light waves. She took the bus home, sitting near the window, watching the suburban grid drift past, yards she'd walked for years, homes with stories quieter than her own but equally layered. By the time she stepped through her front door, her phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. "Can we talk about this before you do something rash?" Rash. The word hung there, confident in a way that made her tilt her head. She looked past it, past the timestamp, past the desperation woven beneath his attempt at calm authority. She didn't reply. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table, unzipped her purse, and pulled out her maintenance log, a meticulous binder she had kept for 15 years. Oil changes, tire rotations, warranty notes, every inspection recorded in neat handwriting. She flipped through the pages slowly, grounding herself not in conflict but in competence. This wasn't chaos. This was strategy. And as she turned another page, something outside her window shifted, a shadow crossing the driveway, lingering too long. Someone was watching the house again. And this time, Gloria didn't pretend not to notice. By late afternoon, the shadow that had lingered across the driveway earlier was gone, but Gloria knew better than to assume the watchers were finished. People who pry rarely stop because they find nothing, they stop when they think you have. So when Kevin texted again, "We really need to talk," she decided the talk would happen on her terms. She walked into the living room, sunlight slanting across the tile floor, and sat in her usual chair. She didn't call out for them, she simply waited. Silence drew them in like gravity. Kevin appeared first, hands shoved deep into his pockets, face arranged into an expression that tried to masquerade as concern. Lauren followed, measured steps, lips tightened into a practiced frown meant to imply disappointment rather than guilt. "What's going on, Mom?" Kevin asked, taking a seat across from her. "Why didn't you answer my text?" Gloria folded her hands in her lap. "I thought it was better to say things once." Lauren perched on the arm of the sofa, voice softening with manufactured empathy. We just wanted to keep you safe. You've been distracted lately, forgetting things. You nearly backed into the mailbox last week. Gloria lifted her gaze to her. I corrected the wheel before I touched it. Lauren's expression wavered, but she continued, still, we're trying to help. Kevin leaned forward. You're not the same since Dad died. We worry about you. His tone carried a hint of rehearsed vulnerability, the kind used when the stakes were high and the truth wasn't on his side. Gloria breathed in slowly, the air filling her chest with a steadiness she had cultivated over decades of raising, loving, and correcting this same boy. She looked between them, one trying to sound compassionate, the other trying to sound reasonable. You had options, she said finally. You could have talked to me, asked me, explained your concerns. They stiffened. Instead, she continued, you took my keys, disabled my car, and removed documents from my files. The accusation landed in the room like a dropped stone, no theatrics, no raised voice, just true. That refused to shrink under their attempts to soften it. Neither of them answered immediately. Lauren looked toward the window. Kevin picked at a loose thread on his shirt. Both of them wore expressions that implied injury, not responsibility. Well, Lauren said at last, tone cool, we didn't think you'd listen. Gloria nodded once as if that confirmed something she had suspected all along. So you chose stealing over speaking. Kevin's jaw tightened. Mom, that's not fair. It's exactly fair, Gloria said. She reached for her phone, not to record, not to threaten, simply to end the performance. She rose from her chair with the composed grace of someone who had stopped asking permission decades ago. That's all I needed, she said, sliding the phone into her pocket. Kevin stood. So that's it, you're not going to discuss this? No, she replied, I've already had the only discussion that matters. Lauren opened her mouth, but whatever argument she had rehearsed died when she met Gloria's eyes. There was no anger there, just conclusion, and conclusion was far more terrifying. Gloria walked past them, her steps unhurried, her posture unchanged. She reached the hallway, placed a hand on the doorframe, and spoke without turning. I don't respond to people who take things from me. The sentence hung there, quiet but absolute. Behind her, the living room fell into a heavy, unsettled stillness. Kevin whispered something sharp under his breath. Lauren exhaled a frustrated sigh. But Gloria didn't look back. She entered her bedroom, closed the door gently, and for the first time since the keys disappeared, she allowed herself a long, steady breath. Then her phone buzzed. A notification she hadn't expected. From Rachel. Call me. Something else came through our system. Gloria sat slowly on the edge of her bed, pulse steady but alert. Whatever Kevin and Lauren had tried before wasn't the end of it. And whatever Rachel had found was already waiting to surface. Rachel's office smelled faintly of toner and old paper, comforting scents for anyone who'd spent decades handling documents that determined lives more than people realized. Gloria stepped inside, closing the door behind her as Rachel waved her over with the seriousness of someone who had already dug through the files. I pulled your parcel records, Rachel said, tapping a thick stack of papers, and something interesting turned up. Gloria sat, hands folded, posture composed. Show me. Rachel slid a property plat across the desk, old ink, still crisp, stamped with her late husband's signature in neat, mechanical strokes. 2 parcels were outlined, not one, the house on one and the garage with the driveway on another entirely. Your husband never transferred the garage plot to Kevin when he made the initial estate adjustments, Rachel explained. It stayed under your name, legally, they're separate. Gloria studied the map like it was a battlefield diagram, and in a way it was. The garage Kevin used daily, the driveway he parked in, the entryway Lauren often blocked when she argued on the phone. All hers. Rachel leaned back. If they've been restricting your access or tampering with anything on that parcel, you can assert boundaries, literally. A quiet spark lit inside Gloria's chest, not joy, not smugness, but a recognition that the ground she stood on held more power than they ever realized. I'd like a boundary enforcement notice filed, she said. Rachel nodded, already turning to her computer. I know a property attorney who does, miss. The attorney, a compact woman named Porter with silver-streaked hair and a voice sharpened by years in court, called her 20 minutes later. "Mrs. McNeil, your rights are straightforward," she said. "If unauthorized parties are interfering with your parcel, we can restrict their access pending review." "Proceed," Gloria answered. The notice went out the next morning. On Mesquite Drive, the mail carrier hadn't even reached the next house before Kevin tore open the envelope on the front walkway. Gloria watched from her kitchen window as confusion crossed his face, followed by disbelief, then something closer to fear. Restricted access to driveway pending investigation. Parcel 14B owner, Gloria M. McNeil. Violations, interference, obstruction, unauthorized manipulation of vehicle. He reread the letter twice, jaw tightening with each pass. Lauren stormed out the door moments later, robe trailing behind her, face flushed with indignation. She gestured wildly at the paper, then at Gloria's window, as though outrage could rewrite property maps. Within seconds, she marched toward the front door. Gloria remained seated at the kitchen table. She did not stand, did not move, did not give Lauren the satisfaction of footsteps approaching. The knock came 3 sharp, impatient bursts. Gloria turned a page in her notebook. Another knock, louder. Gloria adjusted her glasses. Lauren's voice rose, muffled through the door. "Ope. In this, Gloria, we need to discuss." Gloria remained still. Silence was an answer, too. Eventually, the footsteps retreated, clipped and furious. That afternoon, Porter called again. "Given the circumstances," she said, "you can file for temporary revocation of driveway and garage access due to hostile misuse." The phrase settled over Gloria like armor. "File it," she said. She signed electronically, her name looping steady and decisive. When she finished, she sat back, exhaling slowly as the sun lowered outside, washing the house in deep amber tones. This was no longer about a car or a set of keys. This was about territory, physical and emotional, that had been chipped away over months, years, in subtle insinuations and bold oversteps. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from an unknown number. "Jord clipped. You're making a mistake." Gloria stared at it, expression unreadable. Another message followed. This one without punctuation. "We won't let you do this." She deleted both. Then she looked toward the window where dusk gathered like a held breath. Someone had crossed into her space once. They wouldn't again. But the next knock, the next move would not be quiet. The next morning, Gloria drove across town with her windows cracked, letting warm desert air move through the cabin like a cleansing sweep. Her sedan hummed with a steadiness she trusted, fresh battery, tightened cables, fluids topped off. But trust wasn't the only reason she was visiting the mechanic. It was intuition. And Gloria had learned to stop ignoring it. She pulled into Daya's auto, a small garage tucked between a shuttered laundromat and a cactus nursery. Manny Diaz, broad-shouldered, sunburned, perpetually grease-stained, stepped out wiping his hands on a rag. "Well now," he said, squinting, "haven't seen you in a while, Miss Gloria." "Needed a once-over," she replied. He raised an eyebrow. "Car like yours usually doesn't complain." "Not the car I'm worried about," she said. And Manny understood. He had that mechanic's gift, the ability to hear what wasn't said. He drove the sedan into the bay, lifted it with a hydraulic groan, and began the inspection. Fluids clean, belts tight, no leaks, nothing loose. But when he crouched beneath the dashboard, flashlight in hand, he froze. "Found something," he murmured. He reached up, tugged, and held out a small black device, no bigger than a matchbox, matte plastic, a tiny blinking diode like a pulse. "GPS tracker," Manny said. "Aftermarket, cheap but works, batteries new." Gloria's face didn't shift, but something inside her settled lower, heavier, confirmation, not shock. "How recent?" she asked. Manny tilted the device. 2 weeks, maybe less. Whoever put it in knew where to hide it. Gloria extended her hand. "Remove it and give it to me." Manny hesitated for the briefest moment, concern flickering across his expression like a shadow crossing sun. Then he placed the tracker in her palm. "You want me to run diagnostics, see if anything else was tampered with?" he asked. "Please." He spent 20 minutes combing through wiring, connectors, panels. Nothing else had been touched. Whoever planted the tracker wasn't trying to sabotage, only monitor. Only control. When the inspection was done, Manny leaned against the fender, arms crossed. You okay? Gloria tucked the tracker into her purse with a deliberate, almost delicate motion. I'm better than they think I am. He smiled faintly, like a man who knew better than to underestimate her. Call me if anything else feels off. I will. The drive home was calm, sunlight glinting off the asphalt in long mirage lines. She stopped at the postal counter on Main Street, purchased a small padded envelope, and placed the tracker inside with a single yellow sticky note. Wasn't hard to find. She wrote Kevin's name, not the shared family address. Sometimes messages needed to land in the exact hands responsible. When she returned home, Maggie sat on the porch steps pretending to scroll her phone, though her eyes lifted as soon as Gloria approached. You were gone early, she said softly, tone careful, observant. Maggie never pried, but she always noticed. I had errands, Gloria replied. Maggie hesitated. Dad was mad this morning, Mom too, something about a mail alert. Gloria only offered a small smile. People don't like surprises. Maggie's gaze sharpened, the kind that belonged to someone older than 14, someone who had learned to read storms in voices and footsteps. They don't like losing, she whispered. Gloria paused, then sat beside her, letting the warmth of the brick step seep into her palms. Then, she said gently, they shouldn't have started the game. Maggie looked at her grandmother, not with fear but with awe. Inside, Gloria's phone buzzed. A notification. One line. Package picked up. The tracker was already in transit. And somewhere in the house next door, a fallout was beginning, one she wouldn't need to witness to understand. Because the people who monitor others lose their minds when they realize they're the ones being watched. The summons arrived in a stiff white envelope slipped between a grocery flyer and a dentist postcard. Gloria read it once, twice, absorbing the bureaucratic weight behind the formal phrasing. Wellness and Capacity Review Hearing. Filed by Kevin McNeil. Not surprising. Just disappointing in a way only predictability could be. The courthouse lobby was cool and over-air-conditioned, humming with the echo of footsteps and the faint clatter of security bins. Gloria passed through the checkpoint with the calm of someone who had already measured her truth and found it unshakable. She arrived early, always early. In the hallway outside Courtroom B, she organized her folder. Clean neurological evaluation. Updated physical exam. DMV competency certification. Vision and reflex test results. Every page was dated within the last month, every signature clear, every stamp official. When the bailiff opened the doors, she walked inside with unhurried steps, nodding politely to the judge, then taking her seat at the wooden table. Kevin and Lauren entered moments later. Kevin looked strained, hair combed too neatly, confidence brittle around the edges. Lauren held a tablet like a shield, expression tight, defensive, rehearsed. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes softened by decades of human frailty, opened the file. Mrs. McNeil, she began, your son has petitioned for temporary guardianship based on reported cognitive decline. Gloria folded her hands in her lap. I'm aware. Lauren stood first, clearing her throat in a display of strained composure. Your Honor, Gloria has been slipping. She forgets things. She's been confused, distracted. She nearly caused an accident. Objection, Gloria said softly. I corrected before hitting anything. The judge nodded, making a note. Proceed, but with specifics. Lauren swiped her tablet, pulling up screenshots, blog posts about senior driving risks, articles about dementia signs, a neighborhood forum rumor about an elderly woman mixing up her trash days. None of it referenced Gloria, none of it proved anything. Just noise arranged to look like substance. Kevin added weakly, we've noticed patterns. But when the judge asked, documented where, he had nothing but anecdotes. Finally, the judge turned to Gloria. Do you have evidence you'd like to present? Gloria opened her folder with a slow, unhurried motion. One by one, she placed documents on the table: test results, DMV certifications, doctor notes, each page crisp, unassailable. Then she added a small padded mailer. The tracker. The judge lifted an eyebrow. What am I looking at? A device installed under my dashboard, Gloria said calmly. Discovered by my mechanic, installed without my knowledge. Kevin stiffened, Lauren's face drained of color. Gloria continued, sliding forward printed text logs, timestamps of their late-night messages, the GPS data request alert she'd received, the letter from the property attorney regarding driveway interference. Then she placed her phone face down on the table. I'd also like to submit a recording, she said, of a conversation where I asked why they didn't talk to me before taking my keys. They admitted they didn't think I'd listen. The judge held up a hand. That will suffice. Silence fell heavy. A silence that exposed motive, not concern. The judge leaned back, assessing Kevin with a gaze that told him very clearly she saw straight through him. Mr. McNeil, she said, voice firm, petitions like these are not tools for leverage or retaliation. Misuse of guardianship filings is taken seriously. Kevin swallowed hard. I was trying to help. Your methods suggest otherwise. She turned to Gloria. Mrs. McNeil, your competency is not in question. Moreover, given the pattern of interference, I am approving your request for a temporary no-contact clause pertaining to estate and asset matters. Any attempts to access or influence your documents without consent will constitute a violation. Lauren inhaled sharply. Kevin stared straight ahead, jaw slack. The gavel fell once. The hearing was over. Gloria gathered her papers, placing each page back into her folder with the precision of someone closing a chapter, not fleeing from one. As she exited the courtroom, a text buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. 4 words. You shouldn't have one. Gloria paused only long enough to lock her phone. They still didn't understand. This wasn't about winning. This was about ending a game they should never have started. But games like these rarely ended cleanly. And someone, somewhere in that courthouse hallway, was already preparing their next move. The house felt different that evening, lighter somehow, despite the storm still gathering at the edges of Gloria's life. Maybe it was the court ruling, maybe it was the silence from next door, brittle and overcontrolled, or maybe it was simply the sound of her own footsteps echoing without interruption. She set the dining table deliberately, placing a single plate in the center, angling the silverware just so. She poured herself a small glass of red wine, nothing extravagant but enough to mark the moment. For once, she wasn't eating quickly or apologetically or under someone's watchful assumptions about age. She ate slowly, tasting every bite. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was earned. Halfway through her meal, a soft knock tapped against the frame of the open screen door. Her neighbor, Mrs. Fulton, leaned in with a cautious smile, holding a bag of lemons from her tree. Sorry to bother you, Gloria, just wanted to drop these off. Everything okay with the kids? Gloria dabbed her mouth with a napkin. They're growing up backwards, she said. Mrs. Fulton blinked, then chuckled, though her eyes lingered with understanding. Well, if you need anything. I know where to find you, Gloria replied. When her neighbor left, the house settled again, warm lamplight stretching across the table. Gloria cleared her plate, rinsed it, stacked it neatly. Then she walked to her office and pulled out the thick blue binder she hadn't updated in 8 months. Her will. She flipped through the pages with steady, practiced movements, reviewing names, clauses, numbers, each one a decision sharpened by experience. Kevin's name appeared twice, Lauren's once. By the time she finished, none of them remained. Instead, she wrote a new section in calm, precise handwriting. To my granddaughter Margaret Lynn McNeil. For the day she is old enough to understand that freedom is not inherited, it is chosen. She sealed the letter with a strip of gold tape and placed it in the envelope marked Maggie, to be opened when appropriate. Not when convenient. Not when someone else said so. When appropriate. The back door creaked softly. Gloria turned. Maggie slipped inside, wearing pajamas and holding a plate of slightly lopsided cookies. She closed the door quietly behind her like someone used to navigating sound around people who always listened too closely. "Mom and Dad are arguing again," she whispered. "I brought you these." Warm sugar and cinnamon drifted through the kitchen. Gloria didn't take the cookies immediately. She looked at Maggie's face first, the worry lines forming too early, the guarded eyes that reminded her of herself at 14. "I like it better here," Maggie said, lowering her voice further. "It's quieter." Gloria crouched slightly to meet her granddaughter's gaze. "Sweetheart, I want you to remember something." Maggie nodded, waiting. "Peace doesn't mean silence," Gloria said. "Peace means safety. Silence just means someone else is talking too loud." The words sank into Maggie like seeds dropped into fertile ground, absorbed, held, growing roots. Maggie set the cookies down and wrapped her arms around her grandmother's waist. The hug wasn't quick or polite, it was full, clinging, honest. Gloria held her just as tightly. After a long moment, Maggie slipped out the back door, vanishing into the dim path between the houses. The night settled again. Gloria locked the door, then she paused, staring at her own reflection faintly visible in the glass, older, yes, but sharper than anyone in that courtroom seemed to expect. Her phone buzzed. A new notification. Emergency alert, change detected in a shared digital file. Document: McNeil Family Estate Overview. Editor: Kevin McNeil. Gloria's expression didn't shift, but her breath left her in one steady exhale. They were still trying. But they were about to learn. She hadn't even shown her final cards yet. The next morning, the community center on Agave Road buzzed with the soft shuffle of sneakers and the murmur of retired voices. Flyers for yoga classes and Medicare workshops fluttered against corkboards as Gloria stepped inside, her tote bag tucked neatly under her arm. She wasn't there to complain. She wasn't there to accuse. She was there because experience, especially painful experience, had a purpose when shared. The seniors' advocacy meeting gathered in a small room off the main hall. Folding chairs circled a battered coffee table, and sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, casting narrow stripes across the floor. A dozen other attendees nodded her a warm greeting: widowers, retired nurses, veterans, caregivers, people who knew what it meant to be spoken over, spoken for, or dismissed entirely. Gloria took her seat. The facilitator, a silver-haired woman with gentle authority, opened the discussion. "Today we're talking about autonomy, how families support it, and how sometimes they don't." A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the group. Gloria sat quietly until the facilitator gestured toward her. "Gloria, you mentioned in your sign-up that you had something to share." For a heartbeat, the room stilled. Then Gloria spoke, not dramatically, not angrily, just plainly. She described waking to missing keys. A dead battery someone else had unplugged. A title folder removed from her filing cabinet. A tracker hidden in her car. A guardianship petition filed without her knowledge. She never used names, she never raised her voice. She simply laid out the facts with the clarity of a woman who understood the difference between chaos and a pattern. The room leaned closer with every sentence. One man whispered, "That happened to my sister." A woman pressed a tissue to her eyes. Another nodded so hard her earrings shook. Halfway through, someone near the back quietly lifted a phone and hit record, instinctively sensing that what Gloria was saying wasn't just testimony, it was a match touching dry kindling. When she finished, the room didn't applaud, it didn't need to. It honored her with something better: understanding. For the first time in months, Gloria felt the weight on her chest shift, not vanish, just redistribute. Shared burdens do that. By the time she returned to her car, her phone vibrated with a notification. New post in Desert Voices Community Forum. A video thumbnail, her face mid-sentence, eyes steady. She clicked. The clip was short, 40 seconds of the cleanest truth she'd spoken yet. Forced dependency isn't care, it's control dressed up like concern. Within minutes, comments stacked beneath the post. "My nephew tried taking my checkbook, thought I wouldn't notice. My daughter did this to my husband, thank you for speaking up. This is happening more than people think. Who is this woman? She needs to be heard." The notifications pinged so rapidly Gloria silenced the phone. But the momentum didn't stop. An email arrived before she even pulled out of the parking lot. From Alina Ruiz, Community Affairs Reporter. Subject: Interview Request, Elder Autonomy Feature. Message: Your words today struck a chord. I'd like to speak with you on record if you're willing. Gloria stared at the screen, the desert sun glaring across her windshield like a spotlight. She hadn't asked for attention, she hadn't planned to become anything, she'd simply told the truth. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel. You just became the voice they underestimated. Gloria exhaled slowly, gripping the steering wheel not in fear but in steady acknowledgement. She had expected resistance. She had expected retaliation. She had expected a fight. But she had not expected this. A community rising behind her. A story carrying itself farther than a single driveway. A truth spreading faster than silence could contain. Her phone buzzed once more. A new message. From Kevin. Just 3 words. Come home now. Gloria stared at the screen. If he thought she was retreating, he still didn't understand who she had become. The sun was beginning its slow descent when Gloria turned onto Mesquite Drive, the sky streaked with orange and pale rose. She hadn't planned to return home immediately after the advocacy meeting, but Kevin's message, come home now, had lodged itself in the side of her mind like a pebble in a shoe, not painful, just irritating enough to address. But the moment she pulled onto the street, she saw him. Kevin stood in the center of her driveway, directly in front of her car, hands raised, shoulders tense, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Behind him, Lauren sat rigidly in the passenger seat of their sedan, arms crossed, mouth pinched into a thin line of dread. Neighbors lingered on porches. A few pretended to adjust sprinklers or sweep walkways. Others didn't bother hiding their curiosity. Word traveled fast on streets like these. Gloria braked slowly, rolled down her window just enough to speak, not enough to invite. Kevin approached, palms open, face strained. Mom, he called, voice cracking with practiced remorse. Please, can we talk? We crossed a line, we were scared. The phrasing was familiar. He had used it during punishments as a boy, arguments as a teen, missteps as an adult. Fear had always been the excuse. Fear of consequences, fear of being wrong, fear of being seen clearly. Gloria rested her hands lightly on the steering wheel. Scared for me, she said quietly, or scared of losing control? Kevin blinked. The question hit harder than volume ever could. His mouth opened, searching for an answer that didn't exist. His gaze flicked to the neighbors, then to the ground, then back to her, eyes glossy with the reality he didn't want to face. Lauren remained in the car, frozen. Her fingers tightened around her seatbelt as if bracing for impact. Kevin tried again. It wasn't about control, it was. Stop, Gloria said, her voice calm as water smoothing over stone. Intentions mean nothing when the actions are cruel. A murmur drifted from a nearby porch, someone shifting, someone witnessing. Kevin's shoulders hunched inward. He stepped closer, desperation leaking through the cracks of his composure. Just come inside, okay? We can fix this. We can explain. We can, Mom, please. Behind him, Lauren's eyes flicked nervously at the watching neighbors. Her lips tightened further, silently urging him to get Gloria inside, quiet the situation, regain the narrative. Gloria saw all of it. Every twitch, every glance, every motive dressed as reconciliation. She opened her car door not to exit fully but to stand beside it, sunlight catching the edges of her hair, turning her presence into something immovable. My boundaries, she said evenly, aren't negotiable anymore. The words cut with a softness that felt final. Kevin stepped back as if the air between them had become solid. Mom, he tried again. But she was already closing the door, not abruptly, not angrily, just firmly, as though sealing off a room that no longer needed to be entered. Kevin stared at her, breath unsteady. His chest rose and fell like someone trying not to break in public. Lauren's gaze darted away, cheeks flushing with the sting of a performance collapsing. Gloria put the car in drive and rolled forward at a slow, steady pace. Kevin reluctantly moved aside, stumbling back toward the grass as she eased past him. Not fast. Not triumphant. Just certain. She parked beneath the shade of the mesquite tree and stepped out. The neighbors dispersed awkwardly, pretending to resume tasks they had long abandoned. Kevin and Lauren climbed back into their car, door slams sharp as dropped stones. But before they backed out of the driveway, Lauren turned her head, eyes narrowed, jaw clenched, watching Gloria with a look that wasn't remorse. It was calculation. Their car rolled away. Gloria walked toward her front door, shoulders squared, posture steady. Her phone buzzed before she reached the porch. A message. Not from Kevin. Not from Rachel. From an unknown number. You think this is over? Gloria stopped mid-step. The porch light flickered once in the early dusk, as if the house itself sensed what was coming. The apology she hadn't accepted was nothing compared to the threat that now waited on the other side of the screen. Kevin sat in a chair far too small for a grown man, knees spread, foot tapping rhythmically against his attorney's carpet. The office smelled faintly of toner and stale peppermint tea, an odor that did nothing to soothe the panic building behind his ribs. His attorney, Mr. Halpern, clicked through digital parcel records with the unhurried precision of someone who did not share his client's urgency. Let's start from the beginning, Halpern muttered, adjusting his glasses. You said your mother filed a boundary enforcement notice. Yeah, Kevin snapped, overreacting obviously, but can we just reverse it or pause it? It's ridiculous. Halpern didn't answer immediately. He enlarged the property map, rotated it, then highlighted two shaded parcels that glowed on the screen like separate islands. This, he said, tapping one, is your mother's primary residence parcel. Kevin nodded impatiently. And this, Halpern continued, tapping the other, is parcel 14B. Kevin frowned. The garage. The garage, Halpern confirmed, and the driveway leading to it. Kevin blinked once, twice. No, he said, no, that's ours. Dad said he told me. Halpern shook his head. Your father never finalized the transfer. The parcel remains solely under your mother's name. Legally, she controls ingress and egress, which means, he paused, letting the implication land, she can restrict access. Kevin's breath stuttered. Restrict as in? As in, Halpern said gently, you could lose daily access to your own driveway. Silence collapsed over the room like dropped sandbags. Lauren's voice cut through it tight, incredulous. What does that do to the home valuation? We need that access, the listing estimates. We're not listing anything, Kevin muttered. Lauren ignored him. Can she really just fence us out? Halpern interlaced his fingers. Given the interference claims she filed and the evidence supporting them, yes. If she pursues a full revocation, you may need street parking or to construct a separate access path. Both options would materially affect resale. Lauren's composure cracked, her breath hitched in a shallow spiral. We can't afford that. We can't. Kevin, do something. Kevin rubbed his forehead, the weight of consequence finally sinking beneath his skin. He had underestimated her. Again, he had assumed she'd fold under pressure, that age would work in his favor, that silence meant surrender. But she hadn't been silent. She'd been gathering ammunition. Okay, Kevin said, forcing calm he didn't feel. We'll email her, ask to negotiate a fair use arrangement, something reasonable. Halpern nodded. Choose your words carefully. Lauren typed the email on her tablet, fingers jabbing the glass with frantic precision. The message was long, too long, constructed with pleadings, rationalizations, and thinly disguised fear. Subject: seeking mutual resolution regarding parcel access. Tone: desperately diplomatic. Subtext: cornered. When they hit send, both exhaled shakily. Gloria received the email an hour later. She didn't open it immediately. She finished trimming the yellow lantana she'd planted along the property line, her property line, pressing each new boundary marker into the soil with steady, patient hands. The desert breeze carried the faint scent of warm dust and citrus, brushing her cheek as though approving the work. Finally, she wiped her palms on her jeans and opened her inbox. Kevin and Lauren's message sprawled across the screen. Paragraphs pleading for compromise, for reconsideration, for leniency disguised as reasonableness. Gloria read it once. Then she clicked forward and addressed it to Rachel. She typed a single line. No response necessary. She hit send. Outside, the wind shifted, rustling through the fresh flowers in quiet applause. She placed the last boundary marker, angled perfectly, unmovable. The phone buzzed again. A new notification. Attempted login to Gloria's online insurance portal blocked. IP address McNeil Household Network. Gloria straightened slowly, eyes narrowing at the horizon. They were still digging. Still desperate. Still willing to cross lines she'd just drawn in the earth. Her flowers trembled in the breeze, but she didn't. Because the next document she filed would end the game entirely. By sunrise the next morning, Gloria had already decided what needed to be done. There was no triumph in it, no anger, just clarity, clean and sharp as desert light breaking across the ridgeline. The kind of clarity that comes when every line you've drawn has been tested and you finally understand which ones must become permanent. Rachel met her at the Legal Services Building, a boxy structure with tinted windows that reflected the sky in warped fragments. She held a stack of documents pressed neatly against her chest. "Everything's prepared," Rachel said. "All that's left is your signature." They walked down the quiet hallway to a conference room. The table smelled faintly of disinfectant and sun-warmed wood. The estate attorney, Ms. Porter, nodded at them from the head of the table, her pen already poised. Gloria sat, smoothing the front of her blouse. There was no hesitation, just a calmness so steady it almost surprised her. Porter slid the first document forward. A living trust amendment. It designated that parcel 14B, the garage, the driveway, the sliver of earth Kevin thought he had inherited through entitlement alone, would pass directly to Maggie upon Gloria's death. Not shared, not contested, not diluted by family politics. Maggie only, Porter confirmed. Irrevocable clause engaged. Gloria signed her name with a deliberate looping stroke. The next set of documents waited like a sealed fate, the revised will, clean, simple, brutally honest. Kevin's name was nowhere. Lauren's nowhere. The pages no longer bent toward obligation, they pointed forward toward a granddaughter who had listened when others had spoken over her. "Final signatures," Porter said softly. Gloria signed again, steady as ever. Rachel collected each completed document, organizing them into a pristine stack before placing them in a large manila envelope stamped notarized copies. She tucked it under her arm like someone safeguarding a live coal. "I'll deliver these myself to probate," Rachel said. "No delays, no interference." Gloria nodded, "Thank you." But there was still one more thing she needed to write, something no attorney could draft. At home that afternoon, sunlight pooled across her kitchen table as she pulled out a sheet of cream stationery. Her pen hovered briefly before she began. "My darling Maggie, freedom is responsibility wrapped in choices. And I am choosing you because you have always chosen kindness, even when surrounded by noise. This is not a burden, it is a key, one I hope you use wisely, bravely, gently." She signed it simply, "Love, Grandma." She sealed the envelope, pressed a gold sticker to close it, and placed it beside the letter she had written weeks earlier, a future waiting for the right hands. Kevin found out 2 days later. A public filing notice, cold, bureaucratic, merciless, arrived in his mailbox. He tore it open expecting some kind of victory. Instead, he found his erasure. He read the line naming Maggie the sole inheritor of parcel 14B 3 times, then the updated will notice, then the certification of irrevocable trust changes. He still didn't understand. Not because the legal terms were confusing, but because the consequences finally had shape, and they wore his mother's signature. Lauren sat in the car outside the title office, scanning the same document on her phone. Her breath came in shallow gasps, eyes glossing with fear that had nothing to do with Gloria and everything to do with what they had just cost themselves. "We're done," she whispered. "Kevin, don't you get it? We're actually done." But Kevin only stared at the paper in his hands, fingers trembling as though the words might rearrange themselves if he blinked hard enough. They didn't. They never would. Back home, Gloria stepped onto her porch and watched the desert evening stretch wide and unbothered. A faint wind brushed the wind chimes, their notes soft, resolute. Her phone vibrated once. A notification from the probate portal. All filings accepted, status active and enforceable. She exhaled slowly, letting the last remnants of fear leave her body. Then from across the yard, the sound of a car door slammed hard, furious. Kevin. Coming toward her house. Not with apology this time. With something else entirely. Kevin's footsteps pounded closer across the gravel, but Gloria didn't move toward the door, not yet. She simply turned, walked back inside, and locked the deadbolt with a quiet, decisive click. She had somewhere else to be. By the time Kevin reached her porch, red-faced and breathless, Gloria was already driving down Mesquite Drive toward Rachel's office, papers, signatures, and finality waiting like a calm shoreline after a long storm. Rachel met her in the conference room with 2 fresh binders laid out on the table. "This is it," she said. "Once we sign, it's airtight, no reversals, no contests, no loopholes." Gloria nodded, sliding her reading glasses on. "Let's begin." The first binder contained the vehicle designation, her sedan in pristine condition thanks to decades of meticulous care, listed for transfer to Maggie alone. The second binder named Maggie as beneficiary to her trust accounts, small but meaningful, accumulated not from wealth but from discipline. The third outlined the property parcels, including the contested driveway and garage. Each page layered protections tied to elder rights statutes and documented interference. Porter, the estate attorney, pointed to the final clause. Because of the guardianship abuse evidence and the tracking device, these transfers fall under protective provisions. Once signed, they cannot be challenged by Kevin or Lauren. Gloria felt no triumph hearing it. Only relief. Quiet earned absolute. Maggie slipped into the room a moment later, summoned by a text Gloria had sent an hour earlier. Her granddaughter's eyes darted between the adults, uncertain. Did something happen? Gloria smiled softly. "Something is happening, come here." She guided Maggie to the table. The first page waiting for her signature was marked simply, "Future owner Margaret Lynn McNeil." Maggie's hands trembled as she touched the pen. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Grandma, this is a lot." Gloria rested a steady hand over hers. "I've never been more sure." Maggie nodded and signed carefully, letter by letter, as though each stroke honored the trust being placed in her. When it was done, Rachel pressed the documents into their respective envelopes and stamped each one with a heavy, echoing seal. The sound felt like the final latch on a long-guarded door. "It's official," Rachel said. "Everything is protected, everything is yours to decide." The shouting started as soon as Gloria returned home. Kevin's fist hammered the front door, rattling the frame. "Mom," he roared, voice cracking under fury and humiliation. "How could you do this to your own son?" Gloria stepped forward, unlocked only the storm door, the barrier of glass between them clear but unyielding. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't step back. "You did, is to yourself," she said evenly, "when you stopped acting like one." Kevin's face contorted, rage and disbelief wrestling across it. Behind him, Lauren stood near the walkway, mascara streaked, hands trembling. "We needed help," Lauren cried. "You know that, you know what we're dealing with." Gloria's eyes softened for only a fraction of a second, then the softness hardened into truth. "You didn't want help," she said, "you wanted control." Kevin's jaw clenched, Lauren's breath shuddered. Neither had expected the line they'd crossed to leave such lasting marks. A neighbor 2 houses down paused mid-watering, staring openly now. Another slipped quietly back inside, unwilling to witness what was coming. Kevin slammed his palm against the door one last time. "You ruined us." "No," Gloria replied, voice calm as desert stone. "I protected what you tried to ruin." She closed the storm door, not slamming, simply sealing, and walked away while Kevin's anger echoed uselessly outside. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Gloria stood in her backyard watering the new lantana blooms. The air hummed with cicadas, warm and indifferent to human conflict. Her phone buzzed. A new message. Not from Kevin. Not from Lauren. Not from Rachel. From the probate system. New inquiry filed. Request for emergency reconsideration. Filed by Kevin McNeil. Status flagged for review. Gloria stared at the screen. They were trying again. And this time they weren't coming quietly. Sunday arrived quiet and golden, the kind of morning Arizona saved for those who had survived a storm with their dignity intact. Gloria woke before the alarm, the aftertaste of last night's probate notice still lingering, but softened now as though someone had placed a warm hand over a bruise. Today was not for Kevin. Or Lauren. Or any fight they were scrambling to revive. Today was for Maggie. She found her granddaughter already in the kitchen, hair messy from sleep, sleeves pushed up, standing on her tiptoes as she reached for the mixing bowl. "You're up early," Gloria said. Maggie grinned. "I wanted to surprise you, pancakes." The batter splattered on the counter, flour dusted the floor, and the first 3 pancakes came out lopsided and half-raw, but Gloria laughed, honest and unrestrained. It startled her at first, the sensation of laughter filling a space that had been tight for months. By the 4th pancake they found their rhythm: flip, catch, plate, laugh again. "You haven't smiled like this in forever," Maggie said quietly. Gloria paused mid-pour, the words settling warm in her chest. "Maybe I finally made room for it." They ate at the table with sunlight spilling across their plates, syrup pooling in golden circles. No tension, no footsteps from next door, no demands disguised as concern. Just peace, simple, steady, unbothered. Later that morning, they slid into Gloria's freshly restored sedan. The engine purred to life with a smoothness that felt like gratitude. She eased onto the open desert road, rolling down the windows so the warm wind could spill inside, carrying the scent of creosote and sun-baked earth. Maggie stuck her hand out the window, letting the air sculpt her fingers. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Toward quiet," Gloria said. A soft song drifted through the speakers, the tune her husband used to hum on long drives, especially after arguments that didn't matter in the long run. Something about the melody always washed tension into smaller memory. Maggie leaned back, closing her eyes. "This feels like starting over." Gloria kept her gaze ahead on the shimmering horizon. "That's what peace feels like." The highway unfurled before them, miles of desert brush, crimson cliffs catching early light, the sky shifting into soft peach tones. Gloria took an exit toward a scenic pull-off, gravel crunching beneath the tires as she parked facing the vast sweep of morning. They stepped out together. The sunrise spilled across the horizon like molten gold stretching into eternity. Shadows pulled long across the earth, then dissolved as light rose steadily higher. Gloria breathed deeply, letting the warmth soak into her skin. No one was taking anything from her here. No one was demanding, cornering, manipulating. No one was rewriting her life except her. Maggie slipped her hand into hers. "Grandma." "Yes. I know they're mad, and they're probably going to keep being mad, but I'm glad you chose me." Gloria squeezed her hand gently. "I didn't choose you instead of them, I chose the future instead of the past." Before Maggie could reply, a familiar car pulled up beside them, Rachel's old teal hatchback, dusty from desert roads. She stepped out, holding 3 coffees like someone carrying rare treasures. "Retirement goals achieved," Rachel announced. "Sunrise, caffeine, and absolutely no useless men." Gloria laughed again, lighter than she expected. Rachel handed her a cup, clinking it against hers. "To peace." Gloria watched the horizon. On a moment longer, the wind tugging softly at her hair. "Peace isn't given," she whispered, "it's reclaimed." Rachel nodded. "And you reclaimed it beautifully." They stood silently as the final edge of the sun broke free from the mountains, flooding the desert in bright, unstoppable light. But Gloria's peace lasted only a breath longer. Her phone buzzed. A new voicemail. Marked urgent. Timestamp 6:12 a.m. From someone who should not have had her number anymore. The sunrise suddenly felt sharper, like the beginning of something she hadn't seen coming. The voicemail waited on Gloria's phone all night, its red notification a small, pulsing reminder that peace was never permanent, only chosen, protected, reclaimed again and again. But she didn't listen to it. Not then. Not with Maggie asleep in the next room and the scent of pancakes still lingering faintly in the air. Instead, she slept. And for the first time in a year, her sleep was undisturbed. No footsteps pacing outside her door. No whispering voices. No keys disappearing while she breathed. When dawn arrived, it arrived softly. Gloria woke to warm sunlight on her quilt, birds gossiping in the palo verde outside, and a quiet so complete it felt like a new house. A new life. Her breath moved easily in her chest, light, unguarded. No fear. No noise. No eyes waiting for her to slip. Just stillness. She sat at her writing desk, opened her worn leather journal, and wrote one final line in her steady, looping hand. My freedom was never theirs. She closed the journal, tied the ribbon, and set it gently back in its drawer. Outside, life on Mesquite Drive had shifted. Neighbors whispered behind raised palms as a moving van rumbled to a stop in front of Kevin and Lauren's house. Boxes were carried quickly off the porch, no goodbyes, no explanations, no invitations for help. People watched, but no one intervened. Some endings were self-inflicted. By noon, the car was loaded. By evening, the house sat dark. By the next morning, a for sale sign rose like a stark white marker in the yard. Gloria didn't look directly at it. Some chapters didn't deserve a final glance. 2 months later, Maggie stood in Gloria's kitchen clutching an envelope from her school's STEM program. Her hands trembled the same way they had the first time she signed her name on the trust documents. "Grandma," she whispered, "I got in." Gloria didn't wait for the rest. She pulled her granddaughter into a fierce hug before opening her laptop and pulling up the tuition portal. The payment confirmation chimed like a clear bell. "You're going," she said, "no matter what." Maggie's eyes glistened. "Because of you." "Because you earned it," Gloria corrected gently. But she didn't deny the truth. She had wanted this future for Maggie long before Maggie believed she was allowed to want it herself. 1 year passed. 1 year without stolen keys. 1 year without tracked movements. 1 year without being spoken over or dismissed or underestimated. 1 year of rest. On the anniversary morning, the day the tow truck had first rolled away with her car and her resolve, Maggie arrived early, cheeks flushed with excitement. "I made you something," she said, handing over a thick sheet of art paper. Gloria unfolded it slowly. The drawing showed her driveway bathed in sunrise, the tow truck angled like a guardian returning what had been taken. Her car glowed with color, bright, defiant, and at the center Maggie had written a single word in bold pencil strokes. Strong. For a moment Gloria couldn't speak. She traced the lines with a careful fingertip, feeling every mile of the journey that had led here. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's yours," Maggie said. Gloria framed it that afternoon. She hung it beside the front door, right in the spot where her keys used to vanish, where fear once lived. Now strength lived there instead. That evening she stood before the framed drawing, the desert sunset painting gold across the glass. Her reflection wavered in the surface, older, wiser, unbroken. And she spoke the truth that had carried her through every storm. "They took my keys while I slept, but I woke up and I drove away with everything they never deserved."